We have Alabama versus Vanderbilt. Alabama coming off of a very emotionally charged win. I have so many things I could say that probably will crack up Hunter with Lank and Hollywood and counting money all day by Boss Man D'Lo. But more importantly, Alabama is looking like the best team in the country, and they have the number one next to their name once again to signify they're the best team in the country. And then Vanderbilt comes this game off a bye, has played some good football. Has accumulated 2 losses, I think, on the season with Georgia State, and then with the Missouri game, heartbreaking loss for them. Could have been an opportunity to get a top 10 win for Clark Leah there, but they have another opportunity to get a top 10 win this year. So this different Vandy team, same Bama team, business as usual. Let all naysayers know. What are we thinking?
It's like we know right now Alabama's the number 1 team in the country. We know what they can do. We've seen them in all facets. We've seen them struggle a little bit against USF. We've seen them, play well against Georgia. This Vanderbilt team, I feel like I still have a question mark next to them as far as their identity and what kind of team they are. Was the Virginia Tech win a fluke? After seeing the Georgia State game, what happened with Missouri? It's all question marks, right? For me. And when you're playing a team and you're Alabama playing against a team like Vanderbilt, it's not a game. You said it early on. It's a trap game. You can't take it for granted because you have such a interesting dynamic weapon in Diego Pavia. Looking back at the USF game I mentioned where we struggled at Alabama, I say we like I'm playing for the team. But Byron Brown there at USF played well. He had 126 yards in the game. 109 came from design quarterback runs. Alabama right now, they're going to have to keep an eye on Pavia for the same reason. I think they're getting better at keeping their eyes on the quarterback and making those reads, but that's going to be the biggest test. They're big favorites in this game, but I think Vanderbilt has an opportunity to score at times through that method.
Yeah, I think Vanderbilt definitely has some opportunities to score at times through that method, and I think we've seen. If there has been any holes in Alabama this season, it has been on the rushing side. We didn't see those holes last game against Georgia as much. And, Vanderbilt's offense you would think would lend to kind of matching and pairing well against Alabama's defense. The problem is they don't have much of a pass offense. So if Alabama's only main task is shutting down this rushing offense, Diego Pavia is going to do some things in the air. I think he's probably had a touchdown in just about every game this season. He's at about 7 or 8 touchdowns this season. But if they're going to have a chance to compete in this game, it can't just be mostly on the ground.
No.
And although that is maybe one of the areas of opportunity, and I wouldn't even call it that for Bama. I would say it's more of just they're not as efficient at their run defense as pass defense. I just think that Vanderbilt, I don't know if they have enough in the air to kind of counterbalance how strong they are on the ground when it comes to how, Kane Womack, if I'm saying his name right, has to scheme for them defensively.
Yeah, and I think they're going to stack the box a little bit more, and they're going to have guys like Jihad Campbell and Deontay Lawson kind of roaming through there, keeping their eyes on the plays. Vanderbilt against Missouri hit their tight end quite often, which tends to pop out and leak in these games and give them an opportunity. I think Alabama is just going to swallow a lot of that up. They don't have a lot of big play potential right now at Vanderbilt. Throwing the ball downfield, especially against this Alabama secondary, who we know can live on an island and perform there. So on the flip side of the ball, Alabama's offense, I think, will be just entirely too much for Vanderbilt. They're not going to be able to stop. I don't think if we see what we saw against Georgia, I don't think Vanderbilt will be able to stop much of anything, and it'll be a game of trying to play catch up on offense and getting points on the board. They played well against Kyron Drones, who has dual threat capability. He's not Jalen Milroe, though, who's been playing top of his game. Langston Patterson, Brian Longwell played great in that game at stopping Kyron Drones. But here I think there's too many weapons. You have 3, essentially running backs in Jam Miller, Justice Haynes, and Jalen Milroe back there. I think that Alabama will run the ball considerably more in this game because of the opportunity to keep the ball on the ground, bleed out the clock, and get out of Nashville.
Yeah, and, Alabama right now they're third in the conference, 221 rushing yards a game. I expect to see more from Jam Miller this game myself. Jalen Milroe is going to obviously get his. You talked about it in the preview last week and in the recap where we expected to see more designed runs versus scrambles. Everything right now for Alabama's offense feels calculated, very prescriptive, putting players in the right positions. And I can't help but expect like a Ryan Williams additional coming out party against an opponent like Vanderbilt. It's not that Vanderbilt is like you talked about the question marks. Most years we're saying this is a bad Vanderbilt team. The question marks are, I would say, positive. Like that means we're unsure of how good or not good they are, which doesn't mean they're bad, but doesn't mean they're good.
It could be better than we think. Is it kind of where I'm sitting? Like they could be scarier than I'm giving them credit for at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you win that Georgia State game, you win that Missouri game, big ifs, but more reasonable ifs given they had a 12-point lead against Georgia State. And, they had times where they were very close in this Missouri game. You might feel a little bit different about this matchup. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, so keys to the game for me, because I don't want to just talk on the spread. It's 24.5 points right now at this time. For Alabama, I think the keys to the game is just being Alabama and playing your game. Like there's not anything that I can look at and say, you got to do this to win or what's going to win the game. I think it's going to be the depth is the key to the game for Alabama. But on the flip side of the ball, for Vanderbilt, you have to lock down the deep ball on the defensive side. Stop Alabama from getting quick drives, force them to work for the end zone. And then offensively work on getting the linebackers out of position and try to make plays that way. The option we saw Diego Pavia multiple times fake a pitch to a running back, just kind of getting guys out of their normal element. If they can do enough with that, then maybe they can cover the spread. I don't see any opportunity for them to win this game with how the Alabama team is rolling right now.
Yeah, I mean, this Alabama team looks super impressive. I mean, you're coming off of a game where you put up 28-0 on Georgia early in the game, and when your back's against the wall, you put together a one-play drive with 2 minutes and 14 seconds left in the game, and so Vanderbilt is just, to me, it's a wrong place, wrong time game. It's nothing to the fault of the players on the team on Vanderbilt and what Diego Pavia can do. AJ Newberry is a very dynamic, receiver. He's been doing a lot on the ground for them as well over there. Anchored down Commodores, but for this game, I mean, it's just going to be domination. I expect from Alabama. We'll really learn more about Jam Miller and Justice Haynes and what they can do on the ground. And in this three-headed monster when it comes to the rushing attack. And so I got Alabama big here. So
yeah, I think 40, let me just say, I'll say 48-13.
Okay. I mean, I'm right around the same there. I'm gonna say like 45-14. I think they get in the 40 club, the 40-40 club.
Okay.
So it's business as usual for Alabama back in the saddle where they used to ride at number one.